Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrate to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the little bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news and new video, you'll be the first one getting invited and notifications. Alright, so this video we would like to discuss an answer to a question which I've been repeatedly receiving. Now obviously it's a little bit of consultation in resolving some of the issues. Obviously there's been a lot of international students looking forward to study in Australia. Now while you study, that's all good. Upon the graduation, you know it, Australian government offer you a temporary graduate work visa. Either it's going to be PSW or graduate work stream. It allows you to stay, especially a post-pandemic era, which is now. You get a 2 to 3 years, and if you're regional, you get 4 years of working visa after you graduate. Now the question here is, what sort of work should you really get? Now I've been receiving a lot of emails, people having struggle with visa to be identified while they know that their post graduation work visa is gonna end. What can they do? Now it really depends on what sort of qualification you actually get, what your background is, and that really is the key, is to connect it to what the work and job that you actually done. A lot of people after they graduated, they just pick up any type of jobs. Now that is fine. You got freedom to, for example, you study accounting, and after you graduated, you work as sales in property. Yeah, you got right to do that. But is that good? Is that the way to go? Is that how you really planned it? And does that have any advantage if you actually work in a job that is totally not related to your previous qualification, and how that would happen to you, and what sort of visa do you have at the end? We're going to discuss this later on. Now obviously we will take a look at a traditional skill migration under the skill assessments. Now you'll notice that whatever that you study and completed, if you don't work in the related or exact field of expertise or professions, what's gonna happen to you is you're not gonna pass your skill assessment. And if you don't pass your skill assessment, what happened then? You are totally unrelated to any type of skill migrations in the future. So it's actually very important at the date of you picking what you want to study. You don't pick a study of IT and then you end up graduating and you work as chef. Now would that be beneficial? Of course not. But temporarily, yes, you get some salary, you get some job, you get some work. That's not gonna be an issue. But for long term, can you migrate? If you graduate as IT and work as chef, the answer is no. Now, today I'm going to take you to look at what sort of visa can actually be connected right after your graduation work visa. It's generally, we will connect it to some sort of working related and employment related before you can actually get a state sponsor, because it's not that easy and not that fluent that you will get state sponsor straight away. State sponsor require you to be working in the related field. The only state that does not require is Canberra, ACT, but you get less points. Again, you don't get advantage at all. Now let's look at subclass 482. Why do we look at this one? Because if your work visa runs out, the next one, if you want to continue to work, is to utilize the temporary skill shortage TSS 482 visa. Now one of the criteria we're going to check out is eligibility. Now eligibility, we scroll down to have worked in the nominated occupation or related field for at least 2 years. Now, interestingly, it says all related field. Now, what does that mean? Now, obviously, going back to a scenario, if you graduate as an ICT profession, and if you work as a chef, is that a related field? Of course not. But some people struggle between engineers and ICT professions because is software engineer an engineer or ICT profession? Well, the answer is a software engineer is ICT, not really an engineer. Engineer covers civil, electrical, electronic, chemical, and generally an engineer degree. You go through skill assessment under Engineers Australia EA, and the background to get through that is that you get a bachelor of 4 years of studies. But ICT does not require 4 years of study. So some people struggle in those one. Now, what about another scenario? If you graduate as a chef, but you work in patisserie cook. Now, is that related? Yes, it's all in hospitality. You're all making food, but the actual detailed procedure is not really related. But let's give you another example. If you graduate as a chef and you work as a cook, yes, that will be related because that's, basically about the same kind of things. But we'll check it how the law and policies actually says about this. So I've logged into Legend.com, which is a library database for all the migration law, and specifically checking out this clause here is 482.231, where the exact regulation says the applicant has worked in a nominated occupation or a related field for at least 2 years. So the question is, how related should it be? Now let's dig in a little bit deeper into the actual policy. Now 4.4.1 work experiences, that goes direct to 482.231 and 221. 221 is the short term, 231 is medium long term. Basically says the visa applicant required to work in nominated or related field for at least 2 years. So the requirement and ensuring visa applicant are highly skilled and have those experience in the occupation and can quickly contribute to experience in the Australian workforce. Now, not until if they do a major changes to remove that 2 years work experiences, otherwise this will be vital. Now, why are we checking out this part of the regulation and policy? Because if you graduated in an occupation and you're not working in a related field or the exact occupation, I'm sorry, you're probably not getting your visa or skill migration in the future. So you make sure, whatever you study, whatever you graduated, you work in a related or the exact occupation. People may say, oh, well, but I cannot find a job. Well, and that's the issue. Why can't you find a job? You probably need to have a deeper think about how you should perform. Now, obviously, migration is a selection of skilled people and migrants. There's no duty for the government to actually pick on you just because you have graduated and studied in Australia, right? They have their right, government of Australia have their right to pick the one they want. Obviously, the selection criteria here is you're bright enough to complete your study and to find a job. Then obviously that's the kind of people the government of Australia wants. All right, let's move on. And it says as a result of intention of any experience completed subject to its industry specific advice below, including relation to vocational replacement, must be completed while working in nominated occupation or performing tasks at the same level as related field. Under the policy, it is expected that work experience should have been undertaken full-time basis of at least for the past 5 years and pick up 2 years, and the period does not require to be continuous, so you don't need to be continuous to employ 2 years. You can be within these 5 years, the first year and the fourth year you've been working, and the other years you basically holidaying. That's fine. The policy says that. Now, work experiences will, however, also be considered full-time where visa applicant work in period of 32 to 45 hours per week under the industrial law. I'm not too sure how people can work 45 hours unless you're in Asia. but in Australia probably not. So 32, that's very interesting, because 32 is actually below the general full-time basis, but they're looking for people that also overseas. So there are different law and policies in every different nations out there. All right, decision makers should be aware that there are a variety of prevailing work arrangements in the Australian labour market, and do not adhere standard work week and contact program manager if they want further advice. Now, note that the 2-year work experience required is not additional to any work experiences required outlined in ENSCO occupation definition, which are relevant term assessing subclause. What does that mean? The 2-year work experiences required is not additional to any work experiences required outline. So the differences here is some of the occupation, for example, in ENSCO, to give you an example, if you come back to the IT sample example, okay, you graduate as an ICT profession. Generally, under the normal skill assessment, even if you graduate in Australia, you're required to go through either a professional work, or you're being actually being employed at the same occupation or related field for at least 1 year, and then you get that full skill assessment. So if we come back to what that actually says here, that means this sentence means that you do not require to adhere what the skill assessment required. Meaning that as long as you graduated from ICT, you don't need to get skill assessment, you get work experience of 2 years, including the one that probably used for your skill assessment, then that's it. That's fine. That's not a problem. So you can duplicate use on that one. It doesn't have to follow what the skill assessing authority's requirement needs. Okay, a casual employment should not be counted towards meeting work experience requirements. So that's like you just work for leisure for some work or contracted work. But anyway, work experience in the related field. Now this is more expanding in what that gonna say. So let's go through that one, where the applicant has not worked in a nominated occupation but has indicated that they have undertaken relevant work experience. Officers should consider whether the task undertaken in the relevant position are the same and closely related to those nominated occupation outlined in ENSCO. And that's exactly what I have described it. For example, compared to graduate as a chef and work as cook, or graduate as a cook and work as a chef, it's very, very close. What about accountant, general accountant and taxation accountant? Very close. But if you graduate as an accountant but you work as, for example, management consultant, probably not really related. So it has to be under ENSCO. How the assessor see is they go to ENSCO and look at the description of that occupation and ask themselves, has the applicant work undertaken in those descriptions related there? If so, then they will pass. So are at the same level. Work experience as a kitchen hand, cook cannot count it towards work experience required as chef position. Now, kitchen hand is a little bit low end, but what this trying to say in that specific scenario is, if you're only there to help to cut all the pieces of the stuff and not really manage it as a chef position, but some of the cook does cover chef's work. So again, what they're trying to say is, if it's gonna be only the position, that's not gonna equalize, but you need to prove under what you have actually worked in that ENSCO descriptions. So if you're a cook but you have conducted work that cover some related field in chef, then obviously that can cover there. But if you're a graduate as a chef, you can move level down. You can work as cook, not a problem. Okay, work experience must be gained appropriate level. Occupation and kitchen hand and cook are lower. So lower end to cover higher end is harder. You need to get a lot more proof. But if you're high end, for example, if you're a software engineer and you want to be nominated as an ICT technician, yeah, that's okay, because that's high. You get higher end of qualification and you work in a lower part of the occupation, then that's fine. Okay, support relevant industry peak body. endorsed skill assessment should be considered. Industry specified advice. I'm not gonna go through into detail, but this giving you a example of nurses, because nurses has so many specialties, so many categories, so they should be considered related, but that's probably just for nurse. But for doctors, probably physicians, that would be a total different arrangement, because if you are focusing on cardiology and focusing on, I don't know, skin disease and things like that, that's total different field. But anyhow, this video is all about getting the right type of work after you graduate. Now, so ask yourself, whatever the occupation that you graduated with, should you be working in a job that is totally unrelated to your occupation? Would that be beneficial? Now the answer is no. You better pick something is more related or exact to the profession that you have studied for. Otherwise, you probably will say bye-bye to the skill migration in the future. Anyway, should you have more question query, more than welcome to leave a comment right down below, and I see you next video. Goodbye.